whether we like it or not. This gross national consciousness is a political fact.
The people of Namibia are determined to make the most sacrifices. We have the manpower and the capability of overthrowing the racist regime of South Africa and attain freedom and independence for Namibia and its people. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The border war raged between 1966 and 1989, and every young man had to go off to the bush. Most white South African families had a brother, a father or a son at the border in that time. The border they were defending was not South Africa's, but part of the country some then called South Africa's fifth province, Southwest Africa, today Namibia. The border, which became part of the memories of so many South African men, was also known as the Cut Line. South of that line ran the so-called Yati, a 460-kilometre strip of cleared land about 1 kilometre wide, running from the Colonial in the west to the Okavango in the east. The Cut Line was often crossed during military operations. Mum and Dad at home seldom knew this was happening. And today, few people know exactly where this conflict, which would continue for 23 years, really started, and why. At the start of the First World War in 1914, Southwest Africa was under German control. As a British colony, South Africa sent troops to conquer the country, with its two harbours at Swakopmund and Ludwigsburg, for the Allies. After the war, South Africa was compensated by being allowed to run the region as a fifth province.
Dat is dikwels gevra, hoe het dit gebeur dat so baie Suid-Afrikaners hiernatoe gekom het? Het is aan my gesê dat generaal Smuts destyds die standpunt ingeneem het that he wants to establish a European civilization in Namibia.
The Europeans who settled in Namibia created employment, but on their terms. As in South Africa, a system of migrant labour was introduced. Many of the Ovambos from the northern part of the country found work in the mines and fisheries further south, the area they called the police zone.
So I had to come down to the police zone to look for employment. And I went to work in a girls' hostel in Ocho in 1956. That was now a 24-month contract without going back to my family.
Industry is controlled by the contract labor system. Until recently, this was administered through a government labor bureau called SWANLA. When an African signs his contract, he signs his life away for its duration. The contract states where he will work, what job he will do, and how much he will earn.
And the salary at that time, it was 5 cents a day. 5 cents a day, which was then 6 pence in those days. So just imagine what we will end up at the end of the 24-month contract with nothing.
Kyk, dit het maar hier gegaan soos dit in die meeste lande gaan waar daar ongelykhede is, waar fundamentele regte ontken word, waar daar diskriminasie is op grond van kleur, etnisiteit, wat dit ook al mag wees, waar mense nie stemreg het nie en hulle oorheers word. Dit het oral in die wêreld gebeur dat mense net eenvoudig in opstand kom.
The Ovambo People's Organization was founded in Cape Town in 1957 by a group of migrant labourers from northern Southwest Africa. The focus of their resistance was the migrant labour system, but the broader political scene was always part of the picture.
In the early 60s, it is now many people started asking questions as to why are we still pursuing passive politics when the system is brutalizing us?
They were part of a wave rolling across Africa. In 1950, almost the whole continent was divided among European powers. Over the next 2 decades, this picture changed dramatically. Where the colonial masters tried to make a stand, the response was rebellion. In Southwest Africa, the Ovambo People's Organization changed its focus and became a political organization, SWAPO. 2 years later, they set up a military wing, the People's Liberation Army of Namibia, PLAN.
The People's Liberation Army.
In the early 60s, some of us fled the country, went into exile, and underwent military training.
Hilao Shituete and a number of his colleagues were sent to Robben Island for 18 years in 1968, but there were always others who were ready to take up the struggle. The South African Defence Force realized that this new onslaught had to be faced in a new way.
Hoe moet Suid-Afrika sy weermag voorberei om in staat te kan wees om vir die volgende 25 jaar die aanslag teen Suid-Afrika te kan hanteer? Ons het die insurgensiestryde van die wêreld bestudeer. En een van die belangrikste lesse wat jy moet leer uit so iets, is dat oorlogvoering totaal verander het.
Met hulle beperkte middele, ervaring, het hulle aanvanklik op sagte tekens toegespits. Dit is toch logisch, daar was nie 'n oorlog nie. Dit was terrorisme, hoe min mense nou ook al van die woord terrorisme hou. Dit was werklik dade van terreur.
You have to abide by the army or military discipline, as well as military politics. You are not to target a soft target for the sake of it. No.
But local leaders were sometimes seen as legitimate targets.
One of those who were killed, like Njoba, was an obstacle, and another one, Ushonashimi, he was an obstacle in our efforts to try to reach our goals, because they were part and parcel of the system. And hence, definitely, just like Jan de Wet at that time, he was an obstacle, and that is why they need to be removed.
Ek weet dat party mense is vreeslik sensitief oor die woord terreur. Maar nou wil ek ook hê jy moet eintlik vir my sê, as iemand nou 'n bom gaan plant in 'n restaurant en vrouens en kinders in flarde blaas, wat noem mens daardie soort van optrede?
Terrorist war, guerrilla war, liberation war. It all depends which side you're on.
I can describe myself as a guerrilla, a person who is determined to remove the system which suppresses and deprives people of their basic human rights.
Maar die werklike doelwitte was nie militêr nie. Hulle wou nie verower het nie. Die werklike doelwitte was 'n politieke verovering en sielkundige verovering.
They were trained and armed in countries like North Korea and Russia, and then returned across the cut line.
Daar is mense op plase vermoor, daar is kraglyne opgeblaas, maar dit het 'n klimaat geskep in ons land van vrees. Mense het nie geweet nog jy bedrade om jou huisspan en veiligheidsmaatreëls tref. En ons was destyds uit en uit afhanklik van beskerming deur die polisie.
South African soldiers were not allowed to operate in Southwest Africa, so when they received reports of insurgency and faced the first skirmish with freedom fighters, they were all sworn in as policemen. The year 1966. The place, here at Umgulimbash, just south of the border, place of the camel. The story starts with a top-secret order to Turnus Swanepoel, also known as Rooi Rus, the Red Russian. Together with 4 other security policemen, he quietly headed for Ovamboland.
Ek was 'n beheer van paaie en lughawens. En toe het ek 'n oproep uit Pretoria gekry van 'n instansie wat gevra het of hulle die Ruakana lughawe kan gebruik. Nie meer sê waarvoor nie. En ek en die hoofpaaie ingenieur het opgevlieg, dromme weggerol en daar rondgeloop. Nou is ons ook vrek nuuskierig om te sien wat gaan nou gebeur. Iets gaan nou hier gebeur. Daar sien ons 'n voertuig staan met 'n klompie mense. Wat doen julle hier so? Nee, wat hulle is sommer hier met opmetingswerk besig.
The police operated under the cover of PESCO civil engineering. They pretended to be working on roads in northern Namibia, but they were not surveyors. Closer inspection of the PESCO logo would show an acronym, SAP Company, a little in-joke among the guys. As Roy Rus and his team of 4 fellow policemen made their way to northern Namibia, another movement on the opposite side of the political spectrum was also gaining momentum. 2 groups which would soon meet in a hail of bullets.
I was the first man training to come to Namibia with a gun. The first.
Johnny Otunankudu was the leader of the SWAPO group at Ongolombash. He would survive the border war without a scratch. This war, which would drag on for 23 years. Like that of Ilau Shituete and many others, Johnny's story starts with anger at the migrant labor system and the pass laws. He decided to do something about it.
I joined the struggle in 1960.
Like so many others, he crossed the border to be trained.
I was training in Egypt. And from there, I got to training military military academy in the Soviet Union. When I finished one year in the Soviet Union, I come back to Tanzania. I established a camp in Tanzania to train our people who come from Namibia.
On the 14th of March 1966, the first 6 SWAPO cadres left Tanzania, each with a Russian submachine gun and a Tokarev pistol and ammunition. They traveled mainly on foot.
I walked 6,000 kilometers from Tanzania to Namibia. I come to liberate Uganda. I come to open the front in Namibia, inside.
In Ovamboland, Johnny and his men disappeared among the locals. Mao Zedong's metaphor, the freedom fighter is the fish, the population the sea, played itself out here too.
Yeah, Ngrubash is not the first camp we established. But before that, we established a training camp in Namibia. I think the total of the training camp we established was 5. 4 and Ngrubash 5th. When the time I got to the Ngrubash, I was already training in 92 soldiers. Now I established the camp there myself, all the logistics and everything. If you went there, you got some of the house inside the earth.
This house inside the earth would become a well-known sight during the border war. Johnny and his men dug themselves in at Ongolombash. From the other side, Roy Rus moved through Namatoni and Etosha on his secret mission: locate the SWAPO bases, identify and destroy the enemy. It was at Etosha that he chose a code name for his task: Operation bloubul. It did not take the policemen long to find an informant. They called him the Major. This double agent would play a central role in planning the attack on Ongolombash. He spoke the local language and understood the Ovambo traditions. On the 22nd of August 1966, Roy Rus and 2 colleagues went on a reconnaissance mission with the Major, based on aerial photographs. They had to determine the exact position of the base at Ongolombash and decide whether to attack from the air or on foot. The white men disguised themselves as Ovambos, the very first time whites would use black is beautiful as a mask. After days in the field, they identified a landmark and decided an aerial attack was the best option. On the 24th of August, 6 Alouette helicopters with crew left for Rooikop Base at Walfish Bay. But first, there was a legal hiccup. Only the police could operate in Southwest Africa.
Ons was oorgeplaas na die polisie toe. Polisie-uniform gedra, polisie-wapens op helikopters gehad.
They flew to Ruacana in loose formation so as not to arouse suspicion. Bedford lorries with troops followed on the ground.
Ek kan onthou dat ons vreeslik koud geslaap het. Daar was geen geriewe nie en ons moes maar in slaapsakke so tussen die bosse slaap. En ons is maar softies, ons nie gewoond aan so slaap nie.
In total, 48 men were deployed.
Ons het 6:15 het ons opgestyg. Dit is omtrent eerste lig gewees.
Party het betrokke ingery, ons betrokke ingery. Maar die troepe self is met choppers ingevlieg vir die geveg.
Ek was een van die vlieëniers wat Alouettes gevlieg het daarso en die troepe ingevlieg het. Om die waarheid te sê, ek was heel aan die agterend van die formasie gewees wat gevlieg het.
En op die 26 Augustus vroegoggend het ons met 8 Alouettes opgestyg. En op het teken toe hulle oor die basis gaan, het die voorste helikopter, Brigadier Blou, 'n rooi fakkel afgevuur, wat die teken was vir ons almal om 'n sirkel te vorm om die gebied en ons mense af te laai. En ek dink dis die eerste lugstormoperasie wat in die weermag na Korea of in die hedendaagse weermag uitgevoer is.
Little did the South Africans know that their informant, the Major, had also been in contact with his comrades of old. They expected the attack.
I train my soldiers that South Africa is powerful. When it's light, we have only small submachine gun and some of this, But if you see them immediately start to shoot together, you see when I shoot together, whoa, and people, the sound, people say that, oh, this big gun here, whoa.
The South Africans attacked by helicopter. The Swapo fighters only had a limited number of firearms, but they used everything they had.
Not me, myself. One of my soldiers, he's old man, now he's passed away. He shot, he got arrow. That gentleman, he shot the bow and arrow to them, the men who drive the airplane. Not to the airplane itself, this drive, to try whether he catch him with the barrel.
So in die stilaanvlug voor landing, toe sien ek 3 van hulle so regs van my, met hierdie ronde PPS uit, ronde magazyn gewere, masjiengewere, wat vuur na my. Ek het toe later uitgevind dat hulle opleiding was, om altyd voor 'n helikopter, voor enige vliegtuig te mik. Maar ek dink hulle is geleer dat as 'n helikopter in die stilaanvlug is, dat hy nog voor dit moet mik nie. En so het ons gelukkig gemis.
Wat hulle kon vasstel was 23 van hulle wat daar gewees het. En toe was die instruksies dat die choppers vlieg oor en as hulle terugskiet, as hulle uit die gat uitkom en hulle skiet terug, dan moet die choppers ons afgooi. Laat ons op die grond kom. En wat toe ook gebeur, hulle het toe uitgekom begin skiet en toe gooi die choppers ons af grond.
Ek het maar redelik laag tussen die bome ingesak en vir die mense gewys spring.
As planned, the helicopters turned around to fetch reinforcements.
And South Africa go up the sky. When it go up the sky, I heard myself, one of the commanders say, reinforcement.
En toe het ons teruggegaan om te gaan herbunker en nog mense te gaan kry. Maar ek dink die grootste probleem was die navigasie weer terug na die basis toe. Want daar's geen verwysingspunte, enige hoë koppies of enige hoë bome nie.
And I told my soldiers that retreat, those people call it reinforcement. When they got reinforcement, I counted the aircraft that was 4, now it's 8. Say, let us disappear.
Fetching reinforcements and returning to the scene was not without problems.
By Ruakana toe vind die ouens uit, maar in die proses het iemand 'n gat deur die punt van my, een van die lemma, die rotors geskiet. Maar nie ernstig nie. En ek is weer terug. Dit was die moeilikste ding geweest. Want ons het nie kaarte gehad van die beeld van daai gedeelte nie. nou soek ons die plek. Genade en die wat daai gedeelte van Suidweskien sal weet, dis plat, baie plat. En die bos is alles dieselfde. In elk geval, na gesoek het ons ek die plek gekry, geland, en toe het uitgevind, daar was sekere van die manne wat nie meer daar is nie.
But not everyone could get away in time.
Ons het kontak gemaak. Inteendeel, ek was so naby geweest. Hulle het so 'n sloot voor ek en Barnard geskiet, dat net ons oë en tande geblink het. Maar ons gelukkig nie raak geskiet nie.
Unfortunately, we was a new trainer. They was captured with two commanders. One was wounded, one was surrounded, and the other people escaped.
Maar ons het teruggeskiet. En ons het ook die wat gewond was en saamrooikop toe werd vervoer per vliegtuig en goed en so.
The first prisoner repeated 2 sentences over and over. I am Swapo, and I will not talk. I know I am going to die for my country.
Ek het die werk gedoen op die terrorist. Want hy het skoon hier die bors gehad, ek dink 1 of 2. En as ek net die wonde toegewerk en hom aan die lewe gehou tot 3 uur die middag toe hom kon afvoer met die chopper.
Johnny Nankudu was among those who got away that day, but Roerus did capture him later in the war. By then, they knew each other's name and reputation, and there was one thing Johnny wanted to understand.
Swanepoel was a commander of that scene. We call royalists. When I meet him, when he captured me, I asked him, who put that mill on my camp? He said, why? Because I want to show my Eric Kokota when he comes to these things, you are there. I was quite close to the mill. This was a sign of the Boer.
The base was taken in less than half an hour. 2 insurgents died and 8 were taken prisoner. According to the South African government, Southwest Africa was calm and under control. The public would only discover much later that that was not quite true. Like an omen of the next 3 decades' bloody clashes, Prime Minister Hendrik Verwoerd was murdered in Parliament 2 weeks after Ongulumbash. Next up on Bush War, adversaries from 2 different worlds.